Imagine an angel so radiant that the stars themselves seem to fade in his presence, a being whose very name, Uriel, the flame of God, burns with divine light. But what happens when that light is sent into a place where no light can survive? Not by rebellion or punishment, but by choice, by a sacred command. This is the story of Uriel, an archangel tasked with a mission so mysterious, so forbidden, that even heaven dared not speak of it. Why would God send his brightest flame into the heart of darkness? Buckle up, because we're about to unravel a tale that will leave you questioning the weight of obedience, the cost of justice, and the power of standing in the shadows. Uriel wasn't like the other archangels. He didn't wield a blazing sword like Michael or carry divine messages like Gabriel. He was the keeper of secrets, the one who held the flame of divine understanding. When humanity was lost in confusion, when nations stumbled in darkness, Uriel was the one God called upon, not for war but for wisdom. His light wasn't just a glow, it was a beacon of truth, a guide through the chaos of existence. But even Uriel, the flame of God, couldn't have anticipated the mission that would change him forever. Picture this: heaven itself falling silent. The stars stop twinkling, the choirs of angels hold their breath, and the Creator's voice echoes through eternity. Uriel, son of flame, descend. Descend where? Not to earth to guide a prophet, not to a battlefield to protect the faithful, but to the abyss, the place where even angels turn their faces away. A prison of fire and shadow, where the cries of the fallen echo endlessly. The abyss, Tartarus, was no ordinary place. It was the jail crafted for the worst offenders of heaven's law, a realm where hope itself was banished. Why would God send his radiant angel into such a place? What could possibly be worth that kind of sacrifice? As Uriel stepped into the void, the light of heaven faded behind him. Not because it was gone, but because the abyss refused to reflect it. The deeper he went, the heavier the darkness became. It wasn't just a lack of light, it was a living force, pressing against him, whispering despair into his very being. Even an angel, radiant as Uriel, wasn't immune to its weight. He passed the flaming prisons of the Watchers, angels who had once been like him, now chained in torment. These were the 200 divine beings who abandoned their posts, took human wives, and taught forbidden knowledge, sorcery, war, and the crafting of weapons. Their rebellion birthed the Nephilim, monstrous giants whose existence defied God's order. Now, they were bound in eternal fire, their glory reduced to ash. But Uriel's mission wasn't to judge or fight, it was to witness, to see what heaven had bound, to carry the memory of their punishment. And here is where the story takes a turn that will grip your soul. As Uriel walked among the Watchers, he didn't see monsters. He saw tears. Angels who once shone like stars, now weeping in regret. Some screamed in rage, cursing the heavens. Others knelt in silence, their eyes dimmed by centuries of sorrow. Can a fallen angel feel remorse? Can something once holy ache for redemption it will never receive? Uriel's presence forced these questions into the open, and the answers shook the very foundations of the abyss. What kind of God sends his purest angel into a place of such pain? That's the question burning in your mind right now, isn't it? Uriel stood at the edge of Tartarus, his flame flickering, not from weakness, but from the sheer resistance of the void. The abyss wasn't just a place, it was a force, a crushing weight that devoured hope. Yet Uriel stepped forward, driven by a command he didn't fully understand. The Watchers' cries filled the air, their voices a mix of defiance and despair. "Why are you here, flame of God?" one of them shouted. "To mock us? To remind us of what we've lost?" Uriel's silence was louder than their screams. When he finally spoke, his voice cut through the darkness like a blade. "I am here because the Father still sees you." Those words stopped the abyss in its tracks. They weren't words of comfort or condemnation. They were a testimony. Uriel wasn't there to free the Watchers or to judge them. He was there to bear witness to their existence, to carry the truth of their punishment into eternity. But why? Why would God demand such a thing? The answer came not from the Watchers, but from a voice within Uriel himself. "You were sent to understand what judgment costs," it said. "So when you speak to the prophets, you will not speak with pride, but with pain." Let that sink in. Even an angel as radiant as Uriel had to walk through hell, not to become like the fallen, but to understand the sorrow of God's justice. The Creator grieves for those he punishes, and Uriel was sent to carry that grief. Can justice exist without sorrow? Can a holy God look upon the damned and still feel love? Uriel's mission screams yes. His presence in the abyss was a reminder that even in judgment, God's heart aches. But the story doesn't end with the Watchers. There's something darker, older, waiting in the deepest part of Tartarus. Something that made even the fallen angels tremble. Uriel pressed forward, past the chained Watchers, past the howling spirits of the Nephilim, into a silence so heavy it felt like a wound in creation. This wasn't just quiet, it was empty. A void where even Uriel's flame flickered uncertainly. At the edge of this darkness he found it. The first prisoner. What could be older than the Watchers? Older than their rebellion, older than the fall itself? Not Lucifer, who still roams the earth, not death, which moves freely for now. No, this was something far more ancient. Chaos. Before God spoke light into existence, before the heavens and earth took form, there was chaos. Raw, unformed, a pulsing force of infinite potential and infinite destruction. When God created the universe, he didn't destroy chaos. He contained it, pushed it back, locked it in the deepest cell of Tartarus. And now, Uriel stood before it. The chaos spoke, not with a voice, but with a presence that pressed into Uriel's mind, trying to unravel him. You are the flame, you are order, you should not be here. It wasn't a question. It was a challenge, a force trying to pull Uriel into its formless void. But Uriel stood firm, not with pride, but with purpose. Why do you shine when all light dies here? The chaos asked. Uriel's answer was simple, yet it shattered the darkness. I shine because I do not shine from myself. I shine from him who formed you. For a moment even chaos paused. The unformed void, the wound in creation, was reminded of its boundaries. It had a beginning, and one day it would have an end. Uriel's presence wasn't about fighting or defeating chaos. It was about testifying to the power of the Creator, the one who set limits on the limitless. And in that moment, the abyss itself bowed. What's your chaos? That's the question Uriel's story forces us to ask. We all carry it. Those thoughts that spiral out of control, those fears we bury deep, those places in our souls we're too afraid to face. Uriel's descent reminds us that even the darkest corners of existence must answer to the Creator. Your greatest battle might not be about defeating the darkness, but about standing in it, holding your light, and refusing to be undone. Uriel didn't fight the abyss. He didn't try to fix it. He simply stood as a witness, a living reminder that God's light reaches even the places we think are beyond hope. When Uriel turned to leave, something in him had changed. The voice of the Creator whispered, "You have seen enough, flame of God. Return and carry the sorrow of the pit, so the world may one day know what love costs." As he ascended, the cries of the Watchers and the weight of chaos faded behind him. But when he returned to heaven, the other angels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, saw it immediately. Uriel's flame still burned, but it was different. It wasn't just holy fire anymore. It was tempered fire, deepened by the weight of what he'd seen. He carried a shadow, not of sin, but of understanding. Why does this matter to you? Because Uriel's story isn't just about angels and ancient prisons. It's about the moments in your life when you're asked to walk into the darkness. Not to fight, not to fix, but to be present. To carry light into places where it's never been. Uriel's mission was forbidden, not because it was evil, but because it was sacred. It was too deep, too painful, for most to comprehend. Yet he obeyed, and in doing so, he became more than an angel of light. He became a witness to God's justice, God's sorrow, and God's unbreakable love. When the time came for the prophet Enoch to receive visions of the heavens, who did God send? Uriel. The angel who had walked through Tartarus, who had faced chaos itself, was the one chosen to guide Enoch through the mysteries of time, the stars, and the coming flood. Why? Because only someone who had seen the cost of rebellion could speak with full truth about the light. Uriel's descent wasn't just a mission, it was a transformation. He carried the sorrow of the abyss so he could speak to humanity with compassion, not pride. So, what's God asking of you? What darkness are you being called to face? Maybe it's not a fiery prison or an ancient void, but a personal struggle, a loss, a fear, a wound you've carried for years. Uriel's story teaches us that sometimes the mission isn't about victory. Sometimes it's about faithfulness, about showing up in the shadows and trusting that your presence changes everything. The flame of God didn't descend to defeat the abyss. He descended to remind it that light still watches. This is the mystery of Uriel's descent, a story of obedience that hurts, of light that endures, and of a God who grieves even as he judges. It is a story that challenges us to look at our own chaos and ask, can we stand in it? Can we carry our light not to fix the darkness, but to testify that it has boundaries, that it has an end? Because if an angel can walk through hell and come out changed but unshaken, then maybe, just maybe, we can too. Until next time, keep seeking the mysteries, keep holding your light, and never stop asking the questions that lead you closer to truth.